All right. So, yeah. Thoughts?
You start.
Okay, sure. So first off, the game plays quicker than you think it does at first. Like if you don't know how quick this game can play.
Very
I mean,
fast.
we've been streaming for an hour and 15 minutes with a full teach, the whole 9 yards. This is
It's a 45-minute game.
45-minute game,
Yeah.
right? Which when I think of Uwe Rosenberg, I don't think of that. But yes, he has Bonanza and other things. But yeah, it plays quick, which is a definite positive. There are lots of strategies to be able to employ. However, it does seem that the board and the buildings, that how they come out, should and will dictate your strategy that you have. Because, I mean, it's probably hard to see, but those are the buildings that we didn't get to on all the 3 stacks, just about. It's pretty close. So there's huge variability here.
You were at 19, I guess.
19? Okay, thanks. There you go. All right.
Oh, it was 8 for the contiguous, but he was counting the 1 point that he got for his glass.
There you go. It doesn't
so
matter.
actually it was
It's
20,
fine.
Renee.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And it's tough. The game is hard to be able to, the order in which you do things matters, because you can be like, oh, I'll gain the, oh no, now I'm going to lose, great, I gained a brick, but now I lost all my clay. I need that clay. So the level of planning that goes into this game is deceptively hard. And I will say, no, I'll save that for the end. But I like that there are essentially 2 or 3 different kind of mini games within this. There's the, okay, getting an engine going, what am I going after? Then what are you going after, and trying to play off of that. And then the other thing is, okay, kind of like what you were doing towards the end of the game there. Okay, I know what strategy, or the second half of the game, I know what strategy you're going for, Edward. So do I try and, piggyback off of that, because I know I'll be able to get extra actions off of that?
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't impede what you're doing, absolutely you should be doing that, because you end up getting
yes or no.
You end up getting more actions that way, and more actions is always a positive thing, right?
But then in this last round, we got a ton of actions because we didn't overlap. So also not overlapping is another way to get more actions, because not overlapping means that you're going to get 2 of each, and you have a little bit more control. If you can plan and say, okay, I know that I'm not going to overlap. So round 3, I overlapped with you a lot on purpose. That didn't feel as good, though, because some of the things I'm getting just to block you weren't what I needed. So now I'm adjusting my focus, whereas in this last round, I could pretty much say, I know he's not doing these 5. So I'm going to grab these, and I know I get these. And I even ended up with extra sand, right? And so the things that I like about it, so these are interesting. What comes out for the building tiles are interesting. Production's great, because they're going to give you this ability to change things that are going to help you with your engine, and they can be worth a lot of points. So looking at the points that they're just worth as a tile, and then what they're going to do for you, and then trying to match that up with something I usually overlook, and I think that's hurt me in the past. Having a solid at least one production tile to be able to go in. I think they call them processing tiles, but I call them production.
We're pretty say 6 of them I've done.
Exactly. Right. Having that to be able to create an engine is pretty key, and as long as that gives you some points, I think that helps you.
And flexibility, right?
Yes. The instant ones, I feel like, look really good and can save you at the end. And maybe if you have a plan where you were talking about, can I just play 6 cards this time?
Right. Well, I mean, as you can see, I didn't have a single production building, but I did make use of that, which got me an extra few points.
So if you know you're going to need that thing that next round that you were talking about, then maybe, yes, grabbing that production building, being like, I'm going to need to do something really big next round, that's going to help you with that. And then there's the end game scoring. Interestingly enough, I talked to you about how there's the forestry strategy when we played this before, and how that can be really powerful because you can really get your forestry going. And it's not even just those little groves. There's one for the bigger tiles too, keeping those. So if you know you want to go for that, you don't want to be as I did, just calling everything
Right,
forest
right.
because you know you want to go for those for points. So it's interesting how those tiles come out. And I think that's a bigger part of the game than people give it credit for, because they're always talking about the way that the production works. And that is really cool, because the way that that works, you really want to maximize those by not moving to 0 too quickly. Like maybe get them all down here to 0 so that you're using what you've produced
Right.
before you move them to get that brick and glass, either for endgame scoring or to grab those tiles. But it's really a risk, right? Like I waited one turn too long to grab a tile that I wanted as I was building up, because I was like, oh, he's not going to go for that. He's doing his forest strategy. Why would he? Oh, great. That was literally everything I had waiting to build. And now it's gone. And now you have to mitigate, which I did by building up these, which definitely these are needed. On your player board, your forest glassworks, your glassmaker's colony.
That way you're getting some amount of endgame
It
points,
gives
even
you
if you
a
don't.
way to switch gears
Yes.
when something like that happens. So that happening, if this wasn't here, I don't know what I would have done. Like
Right.
I would have just treaded water at that point. At least that way I could save those key resources that I'd built up and get points for that.
Right.
So it gives you a little, I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing that to kind of make up for what I don't like.
Yep, and I was waiting for this as well, because there's definitely one big thing that I'm not
These
keen on.
tiles.
Yeah.
Because there are so many of them, and there are some that work together really, really well, and others that really just are disjointed as far as what they're going to do to work together. Or maybe, and I'll caveat this, I'm just not seeing it. It feels like if one player gets that strategy, and I'm actually glad this got showcased here so that you could see, like if one player gets that key strategy where a couple of tiles go together
Right.
and are going to match up for key endgame scoring points, the other player's really in a quandary. Do I do anything with my board and actually try to play the game for myself? Or do I play catch up and block and just be like, okay, well, I see I can't let you score that, so all I'm going to do is sit here blocking you the whole game. Maybe for some people that's fun. It is not fun for me. I don't want to sit here just reacting to your turns and blocking you every step of the way. I feel bad about myself. Like, it's like, okay, I'm just interfering with what you're doing, and it doesn't feel very productive for me. So I don't enjoy that. And then I've played this where the tiles that come out weren't good for anybody. Like nothing matched up. So we're both like, I don't even know what to do with these. Do you know what to do with it? Like, what are we going to do with these tiles? I guess we just go for the straight points that they are, because nothing they're doing seems to be
symbiotic
at all.
Right, yeah. Or
So
synchronized or whatever, right.
I almost feel like they need to be marked in some way. Like, here's a couple of strategy, and you kind of cull these piles so that it's not so all over the place. That it's more like centered towards, okay, here's going to be forestry and this based on a 3-player game. And there's going to be at least a couple things you could go for. And then you could still choose to block people or get in their way, and maybe that's a way you want to play. But the way they come out has made my play experiences with this game drastically different and not in a good way.
For me, especially in a 2-player game. Now, I should point out that on the 2-player side, 1 to 3-player side, I should say, there are 4 of each. On the other side, when you play at 4 players, there's 5 of each there. However, my big issue with the game really is that there's not a lot of turnover in general, and it just becomes very stagnant, and then it's a matter of, a couple of buildings churn through. So there's that. Now, there is, and as Chisholm points out, there is a card here, and let me find, here. So there is a card right here, the Feudal Lord, which says add 1 building from each stack to your private offer. So this is the way to mitigate that, right? To where you can play this, to where now what you're doing is literally you're going to get a blue, a fawn, and a brown building into your own personal supply from which then you can build, okay? My problem with the Feudal Lord that I'm not super keen on And some people, maybe the majority, don't have this problem or have this issue with it, is it's now a random draw off the top of the deck. They might work well, they might not, and it's just, eh. And then if I'm trying to play it, say, in 3 rounds, that's 3 rounds. I got one less card than, when I'm just trying to churn through. So I would love to see the market in some way, form, or fashion, like, you know how a lot of games have that conveyor belt, right? To where, hey, if anything's on the far right edge,
it falls
goes
off.
white.
I think that would help a lot.
Or something. It doesn't have to be as drastic as, okay, discard all the buildings on the display, but I just feel like the market stays a little static.
So we're saying with the Feudal Lord, it's actually the random tiles. Yeah, that's, so if you were able to pick and say, oh wow, I see some great ones out there. If I want
I'll take
these
that
3.
one. That works,
sure.
Because then there's turnover still in the market.
But since it's not, is that really going to help me? I don't know. And that's a big press your luck and hope I get 3 that go together. And then, as somebody else pointed out, let's see, you can use those as a resource. There was one tile that came out, but what if that tile's not there? Because that's the tile, which I think was out, we had it out for a little while, where you can churn those into a resource. But if that's not there, they're not doing anything for me. So that, like you said, is a wasted move. And when you get cut off, yeah, there's that feeling of like, oh, so I don't even get to play that? Okay. And it happened both ways, so it's balanced. It happened to you and it happened to me. But still, even it just happening wasn't that great. Like, it didn't feel fulfilled.
Overall, thoughts on the game? Just overall, big picture.
I've changed a lot in 2.5 years. Yeah, so when I first played this, I just was so taken with that resource mechanism, the way it turned and how that worked. I was like, yeah, I want this. I want to play this more. Now that doesn't feel as shiny to me. I still like how that works, but I don't feel the tiles often support it. I have played this though, and it has gone amazing, where there were a bunch of tiles that came out that were interrelated. And honestly, I'm cheering on other players too, because I'm like, oh, that was really good for you, or oh, great move, or you really maximized that. And that's been fun to play. So I've had some great experiences with this game. But it's not consistent. It's very much all over the place for me. There are times that I play it and I'm like, oh, nothing really came out. That didn't feel like I could, I felt stuck and not like things flowed well this time. So it's not one that I would take off the shelf. It's not one that I would like get rid of, but it's also not one I'd probably be dying to play.
So you're not going to ask, hey, you know what I want to play today? Glass Road.
Yeah, it's not one that really sticks out for me among the other games out there. If someone really wanted to play it, and I mean was like, no, I really want to play Glass Road, then I'd be like, okay, sure, let's do that. Otherwise, I'd probably suggest something else.
Okay. So for me, I've kind of gone the opposite direction a little bit with a caveat, to where when I first played it, I was like, really? Because I think I came from old school Uwe Rosenberg big box games, Agricola, Oret Labora, Le Havre, stuff like that. So I came into this expecting this to be a game that it's not. It's a 45-minute game. Now, obviously, it plays a little bit longer as you introduce more and more players, so there's that. But I expected this to be a bigger game than it was. So it was a letdown for me when I played this a number of years ago. And I don't love it. I'm not ever going to be like, you know what I want to play today? Glass Road. However, and Chisholm and others in chat have pointed out that there's a lot more turnover with more synergies with the cards with more players, which makes sense, right? I really like the way the resource wheel mechanism works, because it hurts when you inadvertently lose resources because you weren't planning on losing those resources because you playing poorly, which I love that. I want the punishment. If I do a poor job, it should be on me. The thing that I absolutely still do not like, though, is the static market of building tiles. So if there was some way that cycled through better and would feel more interesting and more exciting, like, oh, what's coming out this turn, as opposed to, oh, we got 2 new buildings out of 16. Whee! But
Right.
if it were 6 of it, because everything on the right edge or something like that, or 5 or whatever, that would feel like a better ratio.
Yes.
And I would be a lot more excited about this game than I am. But so where do I fall on this overall? I liked it more now than I did a number of years ago when I last played this, prior to us getting it back out for the show. But I would play it if other people want to play it. But I also would not be like going and reaching for it off the shelf and saying, hey, let's play this today. Unless there were some way of changing the rules and that the market changes. That's the big thing for me.
And maybe it's 4-player, and maybe it's even just a house rule of that right one falls off. That
Still
might
not
add some
super
tension.
keen on house rules, but says the guy who also...
Opposite. House rules are fine. There's nothing wrong with house rules. It's always just that things are developed and designed for the masses. So you coming up with what's good for you in your game group, there's nothing wrong with that. You're okay.
Right.
House rules are okay. So is there a 2-player game that I've played more recently that makes me feel the way I did when this first played it? Okay, this is a reach and a little odd of an answer, and you're going to be like, really? But Shobu? But there's a reason. Okay, and it does make me feel the way that this did with that resource wheel. Because the way that Shobu works, where you have to make your first move on your side, and then on the opposite colored board, of which you have 2 options, and that you have to move your piece in the same way each, it's that same give and take, I feel like. Is that a reach? I believe that feels similar because, oh no, I've moved that and I was able to do this, but my next turn I can't move the way I need to. I'm in a corner and it's, oh, that was a mistake. And that's what's happening here with this wheel. You're making a move with one side of your common resources that really impacts the other side where your premium resource.
The difference there is the other player can impact that and make it to where you can't make that move, whereas that can't happen here.
I find it better. And you said that makes you feel like that when you first played it. So I'm finding that in Shobu, and I'm finding it better for that reason because there's more player interaction. And someone mentioned, I apologize I didn't catch who, that this isn't really a game that's long enough for blocking. And I agree. I had a choice to go and block Edward, but I was going to then do what? Nothing? Like that would have been bad. So I could have tried it, and I thought about it for a second of like, do I just go and try to sweep the leg and no, I don't think that's going to show the game very well if we just attack each other. So I didn't go that route because I do think it's too short for that. But that does lead to a little bit of a lack of player interaction other than you taking tiles I want. Shobu, there's no lack of player interaction. Right. Everything in it is that. So yeah, that would be my 2-player. I think that's a fair point.
And I can attest to it because every day when Jess comes over, she's like, more Shobu?
I have it out. It is. I'm like, can you play that?
So there's that. All right.
And I'm trying to get him to play a co-op game, guys. Tell him he should play a co-op game. I want to play Mint Cooperative. Come on, just one co-op. It's fine. It's like 118XX.
No. All right, so there you go. That is Glass Road. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did, don't forget like and subscribe down below. If you want to go one step further and help us out as well as help yourself out, go to pledgehc.com. Join the herd. Jess will tell you why, because she's better at that.
Yes, you want to join the herd so that you can get on the Slack channel. There's a lot of great benefits, but my favorite is being able to continue these conversations that we're having right now with in-depth analysis of games that are coming out, things that are on the horizon. And you don't just get to hear it from us. You're going to hear it from everybody in the herd. There's also the herd around the world, so you can find gamers like you in your area and maybe even add to your game group some more folks that like the games that you like to play. So definitely consider pledging so that you can join the herd and get into the Slack channel and keep this conversation going with us.
And on top of that, you get access to my teaching notes for the games that I prepare teaches for. You get access to those to help make it easier for when you want to teach games to your game group. So check that out over on pledgehc.com. Like and subscribe down below. That also helps us. Subscriber numbers helps you guys with being notified whenever you hit that little bell whenever we go live. That's it. We'll be back tomorrow with Yedo Deluxe Edition, which is sitting in that chair right there. Caveat that it's showing off the new mechanisms, but it's kind of a midway prototype in that it's using some of the old graphics, some of the new this and that, etc. So keep that in mind ahead of the Kickstarter coming from Board and Dice.
Yes.
Next week, next couple of weeks, whatever it is.
Soon. And we'll be playing it next, actually.
Yeah, we're playing it this evening with a couple of folks. So
Yay.
we will see you guys tomorrow, 7 p.m. And if you haven't listened to the latest episode of the podcast, check it out over on heavycardboard.com, deep dive of Reef Encounter, or on your favorite podcast player. So give that a listen. That's about as in-depth a review as you're going to find within this hobby. So there you go. We'll see you guys tomorrow, all right? So, good game. I enjoyed it. All right. Catch y'all later. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I'm Edward.
I'm Jess.
All right. Now we'll see y'all later. Bye, guys.